Gerard Sheehy, how's it going? How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
Not so bad. Are you Ger? Are you Jerry? Or are you the full Gerard?
It depends.
Whatever you
A bit
like.
of everything. Whatever you like, yeah. There's
Uh,
plenty of variations.
Very good. I might end up calling you Ger. I don't know. It just feels.
Yeah. Jared Band, yeah.
Baltimore's where you sail out of. Are you a Baltimore man?
Yeah, I'm Baltimore born and bred. Yeah, that's where we're based out of. But we work anywhere from Spain to Norway, depending on the time of the year. So we're actually just on our way to Norway at the moment.
The high seas is your second home.
It's necessarily my full-time home.
I will be chatting with Bernie and Doon Shade soon. She wrote a little bit of a local history on the Pirates of Baltimore, the O'Driscolls to begin with, and then later a Muslim convert from the Netherlands who sailed into Baltimore when it was a planted village and ripped out half the people and brought it back to the slave markets of North Africa. When I heard that story years ago, it just blew my little mind.
Yeah, it's a long running story, right? And you've the Algiers bar in Baltimore now after, and everything has some quite nice memorabilia and stuff in there too, and different bits. There's been a good few books and different things written on it too, so it's quite fascinating, really.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of conspiracies as to the hows and the whys, and in terms of why Baltimore got targeted, and well, I'll get that story from Bernie. That's not why I'm chatting to you today. But I think what's interesting about it is that it was a village leased to planters, and it was quite industrious. And seemingly after the pirate raid, it may have led to the kind of the. I'm sure there might have been some sort of settlement there, but people went up the Illan River, or is it the Island River, the Illan River?
Yeah, people moved up the Island River for shelter and better, I suppose, better protection. Really, I suppose.
Settled Skibbereen.
Settled Skibbereen, yeah.
That's how that happened. And Skibbereen, I think, is Oscuelga for a place for little boats, or a little place for boats, or something like that.
Something like that, I think. Yeah.
So right, well, there've been people on the hunt for you for a long time. Let's get down into the heart of the story. Sail we may, go we must. A local saying that fishermen around your neck of the woods, specifically Baltimore, or generally West Cork fishermen.
I've actually only ever heard it in Baltimore, but I don't know how far it reaches. I just particularly was my father and another guy I worked with when I was younger, John Driscoll. I used to work with him a lot when I was younger, and that was a saying that they used to use. But John Joe actually started out his fishing career with my father when he was 16, so I think that's probably where he got it from my father as well. So yeah, I don't know how far a reach it has, but it's definitely well known in Baltimore anyway.
You are a fisherman all your life. Did you leave? Did you do the leaving and jump straight in the boats? Were you already on them?
Yeah, I did my leaving. My mother made sure of that. But ever since I could get on board a boat, I've been on boats, summer holidays, Easter, Halloween, anytime really. Once it's kind of in you, it's in you, and you just want to be in the water, really.
And it is in the family. Your old man, and does it go back further generations?
My grandfather would have been a fishmonger and would have been involved in the fishing, and all my family are involved with it as well. My brother and my mother are also involved in the business, and my sister and my other brother, take a big interest in it as well. They're not directly involved, but have a big interest in it.
And that industry I mentioned in Baltimore, which I think Oscuelga was doing the shade, the fort of the Jewel, which is that castle that you see there when you come in, the old O'Driscoll Castle, that you come into there down into Baltimore just before the harbour there. And pilchard, I think, might have been the fish, but certainly there was a curing industry there, and it was a booming place at the time that the pirates came and flaked the people away.
Yeah, it was. You're right. It was actually pilchards were the big things at the time, way back in I think the 1800s or something. But it was quite a busy place, yeah. But it's we like to think it's still a hub for fishing anyway,
Oh, it is. And what do you fish, or does it vary depending on what you're allowed to fish?
It varies depending on quota and what we've available for. So at the moment we're fishing herring and mackerel, and another species called horse mackerel. The summer months then we fish tuna down in the Bay of Biscay for a couple months of the year as well. So we head down there normally around the start of July
to get the weather.
They're migratory fish, so they start off down off the Spanish coast and they migrate up to the Irish coast. But unfortunately, the Irish coast isn't big enough for us to keep fishing up along our own coast. Normally, by the time the quota is caught, we're finished off the Spanish coast. So it's a pity, but you get better weather, you get better prices. So that's why we have to go down there. But it's good. Yeah, it's good too. We don't mind it. You know, you have the nice weather and it's profitable. That's the main thing.
Well, there's plenty of Spanish come into Irish waters too, so no harm that there's a bit of a return visit. Do you know what? Actually, back in the day, something else I read, based on what I've already said to you, it's probably no surprise that I like my history. You know, I like the stories. Actually, it's not the history. I like stories, and the Battle of Kinsale. And that whole time, Hugh O'Neill and the Battle of Kinsale was a key moment in Irish history. But seemingly there's a story that like a lot of people down West Cork way around that time would have spoke Irish and Spanish because they would have done so much trading with Spanish fishermen. So there's a huge connection between the Southwest and the north of Spain.
There is, yeah, and I think it was quite a good language that they were able to use with other countries too as well.
So an international language.
I think even trading with the English as well back then, that Spanish was kind of used a bit as well and stuff from what I've read and what I've heard. So
and had things worked out different.
There's been quite a few ties with the Spanish people since the Battle of Kinsale. A lot of people are of Spanish descent and stuff around our area too, or when you go way back and dive into it, like so. It's nice to go back down to the Spanish coast and for once. Maybe we be off their coast instead of them here, you know.
Yeah. I spent some time in Galicia. I did a little bit of the Camino with my mum some years ago. We did the bit from Santiago out to Cabo Finisterre, which is the end of the earth, is what Finisterre means, end of the land. It's out in the west. The sun sets in the ocean ahead of you, and that was ultimately before the Santiago Cathedral. That was the pilgrimage, was to make your offering to from the known world to the unknown world. And I'd say a lot about the unknown world because you're out in it all the time. But that part of the world, it looks very like Ireland. Like it's incredible for anyone that doesn't know. The northwest of Galicia literally looks like Ireland, and it's got a Celtic thing. There's fellas walking around the streets with bagpipes, and you're just like, where am I? So
that's where we actually fish. We fish along the northern coast and nearly in the Basque Country all the time. And there's quite a connection between the Basque and the Irish as well. So we get a pretty good reception there.
Yes.
First two times we went there, they were a little bit wary of us, but we've been going there now for about 8, 9 years. I was actually the first captain or skipper to take an Irish boat in there with tuna. So people thought that we wouldn't get a good reception, but no, we've been going there now for 8 years and things have worked out well for us. So.
Nice one. Use a little bit of, actually it depends, because like Bilbao, they don't speak that much Basque. San Sebastian, they speak a lot of Basque. But anyway, Agur and Ascari Casco are my two go-to words in Basque. But if you go on,
it's the one thing when we're actually there, if you go to a bar, you go to shoppers and then you say Ascari Casco, they really appreciate it and they recognize it straight away, like you're making the effort, you know.
Yeah, so. And I think Agur is hello and Ascari Casco I think is thanks.
Thank you.
You're en route to Norway, a 5-day trip to get there. You're on a passage through the Hebrides. To you, it's a normal working day. To me, it sounds in a way kind of romantic, or sort of a bit mind-blowing. Like there's fellas like you, I suppose, all over who do this. And like similarly to the Andy Weatherall story that we'll get to now, like he similarly was in a cab with you down to Skib 2008 for Cork by Southwest. I was there the year later for the Water Boys. And you were looking for a ticket into it and said, will you go up and collect this lad off the plane? And he's an internationally renowned DJ and clearly a cool head who sadly has passed. And you wanted to chat with him about DJing and traveling the world and all the glitz and the glamour. And he was like, boring, mate. I want to hear about your life. Your life sounds fascinating.
Yeah, that's pretty much it was. And that's what I always say to people as well, that, it was a very simple conversation. It was just chatting about life and what I was doing. And as I said in the thing, I just think he was fascinated that you were so fearless and that you had such a grow for, but you kind of need to have it to succeed in this job. You either love it or you hate it, and if you don't love it, you're not going to survive in it. I mean, I always say to people, obviously it's good to be making money in that, but the day you actually go to sea just for the money is the day you're not a fisherman anymore. It's kind of something that has to be entwined in you and built into you. So it's a mad story, really. Even to be sitting here talking to you about it is just mind blowing, really.
Well, and we haven't even really revealed it to people. I'm hoping that some of the people watching this already kind of know the story, and we're taking a circuitous route. Perhaps not the direct. Well, and depending on tides and channels and the like, you probably have to take a circuitous route from time to time to where you're headed as well. So I don't mind this, and the Zoom gives us the room to do it. But sorry, similarly to him, like for me too, I'm kind of like, so you were telling him stories about being out in Force 9 gales, and I think, and again, to link to the tattoo that we mentioned, and we gave your version, or sorry, not your version, you have a big tattoo in the top of your chest. I've seen it on a documentary about this DJ Andy Weatherall, who sadly passed away. That's about the tattoos that he got on his arms, and he got them after your chat. And he either slightly got them wrong, or he liked it better the way he did it.
I think he might have phrased it a little better, maybe suited his lyrics for his song or something. But yeah, I mean, it's just even like last night, we left in the storm now again last night because yesterday morning we needed to make this passage to get to the Inner Hebrides, to make the inside passage before the weather broke again. So we have kind of about 24 hours of break in the inner passage, and then we're back out into it again, into bad weather for another couple of days to get there. But
wow, you
kind of, it's what we do a lot, is you make passages in bad weather to be on the fishing grounds for good weather. And I was explaining to him, and I've explained to people as well, a lot of the time we're fishing maybe 24 48 hours off the coast, and sometimes the storm is only blowing through for 24 hours, so it's not worth your while to steam all the way back to shore. Steam all the way back out. So a lot of time you find yourself just dodging out in weather and stuff. And there's a place west of Ireland that a lot of us fish, the Parkline Bank, and they spend a lot of their time just sitting there waiting for good weather to come. And it's not just me. It's a widespread thing.
Yes, no. I suppose you're speaking on behalf of fishermen, or maybe not on behalf of them, but your story is has resonance for anyone that's out in the sea making their living.
Yeah, and like one time when you go fishing, you went out and you fished and you didn't worry about it, but now you've quota restrictions and you have the cost of fuel going up, and it's all about economics now, not as much as fishing. Like you have to try and make the most of it and be in the right places at the right time, and it's not always easy, but. And like
there's a lot of negative talk about what's happening to the seas and fish stocks and overfishing. And does that worry you at all? Like, what's your take on the environmental side to things? I mean, and probably your take is longer than we can cover here. But what's the top line of your take? Let's say.
I think like a lot of that stuff that they're talking about are people that aren't on the ground and people that aren't really getting involved, and they're taking things from stuff like Seaspiracy, which is total madness, instead of actually maybe, it would be good to get more people involved and show people that things are healthy and things are in a good place. And I'd like to consider myself as a new and up and coming generation, and that we're responsible for what we do, and that it's our future that we're looking after. So I think, that has come into it, that a lot of people in my generation know more about what needs to be done and are responsible, and it'd be nice to be getting recognition for that too, rather than hearing the bad stories all the time.
Well, although they mightn't be directed necessarily at the likes of yourself, like there's those super trawlers that come in. Do they do anybody any favors when they hoover up the amount they hoover up?
No, I don't think that there's anyone has anything too much good to say about that. But and it's not always directed at us, but that's where the problem.
Sorry, I kind of meant like, do you worry about like your ability to continue in this industry by virtue of the, what certainly the narrative it would suggest that there's a lot of fish stocks that are in danger, and that there's a level of overfishing that could cause collapse in certain stocks and the like.
I can't see it in any of the stocks that we're fishing anyway. No, I think that things are healthy and I think that we're moving forward. And
okay.
I suppose it's like this. I've been doing it for 15 years full time, and I know nothing else. So I'm going to be here till the end anyway, I think.
Yes. Well, no. I was just kind of interested if you were sort of worried. I'm like, yeah, stuff that I see has me up, but I'm not getting that sense from you, which I think is a good sign.
No.
Good.
No, and like the biggest problem for us is, and we're seeing as fishermen, is we have the richest grounds in Europe. We have the richest grounds off our water, and the Irish fleet has the least amount of access to them. It's madness. And that's the problem. It's not that the fish aren't there, or it's not. It's the problem is that Irish fishermen actually have the least amount of quota in their own waters. So that's the frustrating thing about it.
And the story about that seems to be that during our EC accession negotiations, there was a trade-off done to secure a better deal for the farmers. The fishermen got shafted. Yeah, maybe that's too simplistic.
But that is a simplistic version of it, yeah. But I suppose there was a lot of other aspects in it too. But as such, that's the simplistic version of it, really. Like, yeah.
Okay. Listen, we're not talking about that necessarily, but I suppose just, someone that makes their life out at sea and here's the thing too, like clearly there's a danger at times, no question, but I presume like there's a lot of trust in the boats. The boats are able to take the weather, are they? And then of course there's, you have to helm them. I mean, so like you're out in force nines or you stay out, you steam through the rough weather to get to the grounds in the good weather. Like, I mean,
Also, I've been lucky that my family have been in it a long time, and I've been lucky that I've always had good boats under me, and I've been in a fortunate situation that way. But in general, the Irish fleet has come on a lot in the last 20 years. We had 2 or 3 rounds of a scheme by the government to build new vessels, and now we're looking at our 2nd or 3rd round of decommissioning to take them away from us again. So it's been a roller coaster 20 years, because 20 years ago we were building new vessels and modernizing the fleet, and now the Irish government are looking to decommission them and take them off us because they don't have the quota to support them. Wow. So it's madness, but I suppose we're lucky that we do have a modern fleet, and that the boats are quite good around the coast, and people are lucky in that sense. But it is a massive trust issue. I mean, I'm actually player fishing with another boat, and at the moment now there's 12 Irish guys left Donegal yesterday morning, and we're heading for Norway for the next 2 or 3 weeks fishing. So there is a lot of trust issues, and it's good that you have guys that put their trust in you and put the trust in other people, like so.
But yeah, okay, thank you for that. Because it's something I think about, and I if I think like, what might it be like if you're out? But obviously the boats are able to manage it. You gotta handle them right. You gotta know what you're doing, but they bob in the water.
Yeah, it's what we call dodging. You just get your boat head to wind, and you just nice and slowly just keep her into it and hope everything keeps going all right. But no, we're lucky that we do have good boats. But I've had friends of mine come out in the summer just for spins and stuff, and lovely flat cam weather, and they're going, this is madness. And I'm saying, this is summer weather. You can't get any better, really,
Yeah, I took the Dún an Ár ferry, maybe Dún an Ár 2, over to Cape Clear with I know Niamh Driscoll is a friend of mine. She's a lovely girl, and it was August, and we stayed in a campsite over, and it was beautiful. I would recommend Cape Clear or Ilon Clare to anybody as a holiday. And Roaring Water Bay just generally, I mean, it's just gorgeous. What is it, Carberry of the Thousand Isles or something? But
the Thousand Isles. I mean, that whole place is just so unexplored by people. It's amazing that people don't latch onto that and get on it. I mean, as you said, along Clare there is just beautiful. We actually have a small boat, and during the summer, that's where we head at the weekends, take a spin out, and it's lovely.
It was August though, right? And there was whatever happened. It wasn't like a wild day at all, but there was rollers coming in my view, rollers. I mean, I don't know, obviously you no doubt have a different description for them. It certainly wasn't flat cam though, I'll tell you that. Everybody in the boat got sick. Or anybody that went downstairs on the boat got sick. I stayed up at the top, but I kind of was trying to do the can I keep the standing as the pitch and toss of the waves come at you. But like I was looking at them and they were rolling towards us. Now they weren't like anything you were out in a force 9, but for me, land legs, I was kind of like, oh Jesus, I wasn't thinking it was going to be like this in August, But so I can only imagine. But I do sometimes wonder what it must be like to be out there in the wild ones. And look, fair play to you. But look, Andy Weatherall, the DJ that you were ferrying from Cork Airport down to Skibbereen to play that Cork by Southwest gig, 2008, he too was kind of eager to hear the inside track. And I think the story that you told him was about your old man. What's that one?
Yeah, I had just been on the boat. I hadn't been on the boat for very long, maybe about a year or so. I don't think it was even a year. And we left Killybegs in a bad storm, and when we were a couple of hours up in port, we were doing a job down in the boat, and my father was coming down because an alarm had gone off in the boat, and he actually fell down 2 flights of stairs and crushed his ankle. So it was kind of left to me to bring the boat back in. So that's kind of that's the story that I told him that stuck with him. You know, he just thought it was mad to think that I was 18 or 19 at the time, that you'd be in a situation like that you'd actually have to step up and take a boat back in and get things sorted. And
that's
I
where
suppose I've been on the boat. Yeah, I'd been on the boat for years, on and off, in bits and pieces. So I knew what I was doing, and I suppose I just did it. I didn't think any more of it, but he just thought it was mad to think that
stuff like that happens. While he's being ferried around and booked into the best hotels, and given his vodka or given whatever it is, and off he goes into a little. Well, it was an interesting job he did too. But that's when you use the classic phrase that stuck with him.
Yeah, he kind of said to me, and is there just ever mornings that you just get up and just think, I can't be asked to do this, or I just think. That's where I just said, fail she may, but go she must. So it kind of just went from there.
And when did you get the tattoo of that?
I had it a couple of years previous, when I was in Queenstown or in New Zealand. I got it when I was about 19, and I was about 21 at the time when this happened. So 2021. And what's the kind of about a year?
The ship looks like the sort of thing you'd see in 1492, or the ones that cross the Atlantic, sort of.
It's just a tall ship. It doesn't have any real significance. It's just
no. I just even the style of it. Sorry for someone as not without an affinity to the sea like you. I was just even like, is that what that is? And you've got the words underneath. So fail she may, go she must, or go we. Go on again. Sorry, you say it again.
Fail she may, but go she must.
And he got these actually, let's look at it, because we can do an old. We can do an old screen share where we can see well, that's the documentary. We'll get to that in a minute. What happened? There's the piece. So there you go. There's the piece that Ed Power wrote recently in the Irish Examiner. The second anniversary of the music legend's death has prompted 2 documentaries on the intriguing tale of a fateful drive from Cork Airport. Fail we may, sail we must. That's Andrew Weatherall. That's you with the big fish. Good on you. And thank you, by the way, very much for doing this call with me. Paul McDermott is a man who's made many, many music documentaries. A lot of them are Cork. I suppose he's a Cork man. That might explain it. He is the head of media and arts at Rathmines College. So he's done a radio documentary about it. And then there's this, which let's just play just a tiny little bit of it. Oh yeah. It's great already. And you feature in this at the end, but let's just get a little bit about what it says about Andy Weatherall. So magic stuff. And I mean, I was a kind of a Henry's man back in my day. So here's where we get back down to your, hey, there you are. So that's you telling your story in this documentary. We'll just flick through it. Oh, that's sorry. I was wondering where that's coming. That's in behind you there, is it?
Yeah.
Is that the radio, is it?
That's the radio. Sorry.
What's going down? No, it's all right. What's happening on the high seas?
It's just another boat checking in the traffic lane.
Is that you now? Is that yours?
That's one of our boats. So we actually have a couple of boats, but that's one of my slightly bigger one at the moment.
And that's shirking across the way there in a sheer con. Let's so that's the documentary for people to see. Sail We Must, a sea story of Andrew Weatherall and an Irish fisherman. That is you, Gerard Sheehy. That's the piece Ed Power wrote in the paper, and this is us having that chat about it. So he loved the story. He went off and he got the tats. He did a song on one of his albums with that title. People around the world, I think, like, is there various people did artworks based on it and the like?
It's all over the side of buildings, and the amount of people that have it tattooed and stuff now is crazy, you know. It's become a massive mantra, and even when I was in Dublin at the launch Wednesday night of the documentary, and it was just mad, people coming up and saying, do you realize how much those words have meant to people and stuff? And I'm, you know, and it was just a very simple thing, and you know, I suppose it's the kind of way we live our life, and it's the way most fishermen live their life. You know, I think there's something. I
think there's something very Irish in it, Gerard, as well as just. I mean, we won't take it away from the fishermen and the attitude and the resilience that you guys bring with you out to the seas. But there feels something quite Irish about that. Like, you know, like, oh, sure, look, we'll get on with what happens and make the best of it.
I think it came at a really good time as well, that people needed kind of a feel good vibe story, and people needed maybe a little bit of a pickup to say, you know, this was this time last year in the height of coronavirus, and I think people just needed something to hold on to maybe and grab it, and maybe that's why it went so far. But
so did the kind of I was sort of presuming that it was from when he got the tattoos that it sort of started to filter into popular culture, but was it more after he died?
I think it was filtering in for a good while, but then it really blew up, I think, after he died. And I picked him up and I took him to the gig and I dropped him off, and I never really knew anything about him afterwards much, and I never knew that any of this happened until was it the 16th or 17th?
You drove him back again, didn't you? Do you know on which way up or down was it when you told him that one?
On the way down was when I told him the story, and he was just on the way back again. He was just intrigued about fishing and just wanted to know more and more. And it kind of seemed like he'd been thinking about it all night, and he must have. That he popped his head back in the door to me and said, "What was that saying?" Again, just before he left. Like, so I kind of thought, you know, that was it. Even last year,
did you go to his gig, by the way?
Yeah. I went to his gig and I spent the night in the DJ booth with him as well.
Nice one.
Yeah, so
brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, let me get that one in. Well, actually, just before we get to Cian, do you? Because I can find it if you don't. But we should give a mention to the director of the film. You were at his launch there Wednesday in the Sugar Club, I think, in Dublin, was it?
Yeah, it was Tint Man and Grizzly. They put it together there, and Cian was the one that actually started the whole story off in Ireland, and got everything found. So
what's his show on Radio na Gaeltachta? Is it? It's not Raw. Is on Tape Tool. On Tape Tool.
Yeah, or something.
It's an experimental kind of, well, not even experimental, but it's an electronic music show that he late at night on Radio na Gaeltachta. It's really unusual music. He is really passionate and knowledgeable, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. I don't know him personally, but my friend Stevie G knows him. Galway DJ. He brought Andy Weatherall over there. You'll see that in the documentary. But he, after Andy Weatherall passed, was kind of put out a tweet, basically.
Yeah, he put out a tweet, and then people started to pick up on it. Our Examiner published the story, and that's kind of actually where one of my friends saw it in, and he got in touch with Cian, and the whole thing went from there. But I got a phone call that day. I was just actually down the pier fixing it, and I thought this is just, you know, a bit of crack. I didn't realize it was so big until I went home and started Googling all about his mantra and people with tattoos and buildings, and kind of went from there. Even I thought after that, you know, this wasn't really probably that big of a deal. And then just as the year went on, more and more stuff has been happening. More and more people have been getting in contact, and it's just mind blowing, really, you know.
Yeah, it's mad. It's a chance encounter, but it's something lodged with him, and he liked it. And the tats are great, in fairness.
Yeah. Better than my own, actually.
And is there anything else stands out from having met him or anything? I mean, he sounds like obviously he was a sound head.
I was just from what I remember, he just was kind of this weird, cool guy, and just talking away to him on the way down, and he'd ask you questions, and then he kind of, almost kind of drift back from it, and then he'd come at you again with another question like that. He was, obviously he was taking it all in, and that's the way it kind of seemed. But that's one thing I said in other things, it would have been, but nice to see him again.
He, I should have mentioned it at the outset of this for those who don't know, because there'll be a lot of people around in these times who'll be like, who? But Andy Weatherall was a very big player, or he just had a big influence in that early 90s dance explosion, really, where he was DJing in club. He says it in the documentary himself, but I remember like Primal Scream's album Loaded is one of my all-time favorite albums. Actually, don't give out, what the hell's, that's not even the name of it. After me calling it my favorite album of all time. Is it called Loaded? Primal Scream? No, Loaded's one of the big songs on it. Whatever that Primal Scream album is anyway, is one of my favorite albums of all time. And it's where, they were kind of a straightforward sort of rock and roll band with maybe kind of a bluesy feel. And he remixed one of their songs and it just changed the whole band's trajectory. And that album was just
Come Together.
Come Together was one of the songs. Yeah. Loaded was one of the songs. Yeah. What was whatever the name of the album was. It's got distinctive imagery. Maybe we'll go back to the screen share. But he also worked with New Order, and I think he worked with Primal Scream, New Order, Happy Mondays and the like of that. But then when it all kind of like, and he's someone who, when it all went into this superstar DJ business, actually the piece in the Examiner says that too, in fairness, Ed Power, I'm lifting from that, but in reflecting on it, like, he wasn't over in Ibiza doing all the big, I'm the cool celebrity guy. He kind of kept it real and kept it underground and kept experimental.
Yeah.
And you'd have to give him kudos and credit for that. But it's why maybe he's not as widely known or broadly known, because he didn't hit that sort of popular having the hits. And I don't think he wanted to.
No, and that's what everyone was saying in Dublin last night when I was, as I said, I still don't know a lot about him, but I was kind of learning more all the time. And everyone just said that's the way he wanted it. He just wanted to make his music, and he was more interested in making music than being a superstar DJ, I suppose. But they're kind of saying that they're hoping that this is a bit of a revival, and a lot of people seem to be picking up on it and listen to his music again. So that's good anyway.
Well, let's just before we finish, and thank you again very much for your time, let's take a tiny little more of that documentary, which we would recommend people check out. We'll go back a bit to, well, there you go. Look at that. It's so well made as well, in fairness to the guys. There we go. There's Sail We Must. Let's see, that's early Andy Weatherall there. That's his buddy talking about him. Where do we get into? Oh, this might be it here. This might be a bit of the Come Together one. Oh yeah, here it is. Screamadelica, that's the name of the album. And that's Bobby Gillespie, lead singer. And it did kind of change things. Like there was that sort of, those sorts of albums brought kind of indie kids into the dance thing, and it all kind of rolled on from there. Geez, if we only could go back to those times. Gerard Sheehy, it's a brilliant story, and what makes it even better is that it's a Cork story.
Yeah.
Let's face it, that's what makes it even better. And listen, I wish you well. I hope there'll be no failing, and there'll be just sailing all the way to the fishing stocks. And come here, yeah. I mean, listen, let's just wrap up a little bit with that then, maybe, because obviously the likes of yourself are hurting with the inflation in diesel prices. Basically, is it almost getting itchy bum time, squeaky bum time, as Mick McCarthy once famously said?
Yeah, it is. I mean, like, before, if you're out for a day or two and things were quiet, that you'd be able to pick it up, and that before the trip would end that you'd get there. But now, after a couple of days, if things are quiet, you're starting to question your own abilities maybe, and say, am I doing the right things, and am I in the right places? It is becoming a major factor now. And as I said, it's not fishing anymore. It's almost economics now, So look, we're doing okay at the same time, but it's just becoming a little bit harder all the time. And the big thing is young people aren't getting involved in that anymore, and it's just such a pity, because it's almost like we're a dying breed,
Well, Gerard Sheehy, I am very grateful for your time, and I have to say to you, you know what, if you're to I must remember this now if anyone ever asked me, but if you were to say to me, where would be one of your favorite spots to be in the world, in the sunshine, on the, I don't know if the down in Baltimore Village, if that little area in front of the bars has a name. The town
square in Baltimore.
Is it the square? Is that what people call it? But
yeah.
I've been down there a number of times, but I mean, sitting out there with a crowd of people around, and Jesus, even crowds of people around chatting, like thankfully we seem to be getting back to that, but sitting there with the sun shining, looking over Roaring Water Bay with Shirkin ahead of you, you can't see Cape Clear, it's further over, but I mean, there's amongst no better places to be in the world. And someday I hope to see you down there, and I'll buy you a pint to thank you for this.
No matter, hopefully. I look forward to it.
Nice one. Gerard Sheehy.
Yeah.
Fail we may, but sail we must. Slán leat.